Hey everyone, my name is Andy. I'm a psychology major, minoring in education. I would like to teach high school psychology specifically, and this came about when I was in high school myself learning about psychology. It was one of the few classes during my high school that I actually really paid attention to and really enjoyed. Even watching videos on it outside of school just because I thought it was fun. Furthermore, my father is a second grade teacher himself, and while working with kids can be fun, I prefer my audience to be more mature and developed, so high school education is where I found my interest in the most. Now, as for languages, I speak English and Korean, but mainly English inside and outside my home. My parents are both Korean, with my mother speaking more Korean than my dad, but my father was in the military, and thus we moved around a lot. Learning Korean came on the side of day-to-day life. So as my mom spoke mainly Korean, to me she was also teaching herself English too, as time went on. So as because of that, my Korean right now is very choppy, and I struggle learning new terms in Korean because my daily life involves the use of English and rarely incorporates Korean other than talking with my parents. But if I were to learn a third language, I think it would be Spanish, just because the Hispanic community is so large here that being able to talk with people that speak mainly Spanish would be really beneficial. Now, I began speaking Korean very loosely. I'd say around 2 or 3 years old, very basic words. My mom was always the one around, uh, and always spoke Korean. And although I'm confident, but I'm pretty sure she dumbed down a lot of it to make it easy for younger me. Um, but age has impacted my language experience, especially gaining a second language process, as it gets harder to acquire, and really practice that second language as life becomes much busier time and time again, as we all know. And that kind of time to really sit down and learn a new language is becoming more of a luxury, just because how busy everyone is these days, including me. Although I am Korean, I would say my first language was and still is English. My parents are both Korean, but my father spoke a lot of English to me personally, and he spoke English himself well enough to be in the US Army and stay there for more than 20 years. English, albeit harder than many other languages in the world, stuck to me a lot faster than Korean. And because English wasn't used everywhere, this was key to me getting an education and getting along in my day to day life. Korean, on the other hand, felt rare to see outside my home. Um, it was like non existent for me, really. And English was the language I practiced and thus took over more importance than learning Korean had. My learning environment for Korean was really just my household. Learning Korean outside of it felt really alien to me. And like I mentioned earlier, it was pretty hard to find someone who also spoke Korean outside of my home. Throughout my life, my parents did make small attempts to further my understanding of Korean. So around middle school, I attended piano lessons, but I had a Korean instructor, and she spoke mainly Korean, like really barely any English. But throughout the year or two that I was in that class, I was more focused on learning piano than practicing talking in Korean with my piano teacher. Later on, I moved here to Texas, and my parents put me in a Korean learning program at the church they went to, but I was in it for 2 months, and even that had zero progress on my Korean. So I don't speak Korean that well or understand it very well. But being Korean and just Asian in general has played a big role in how I identify myself and my personality. Korean culture is all about family. So having strong familial ties and getting along with family members is one of the most important things in my personality. Because of this, I'm the kind of person who wants everyone to get along and to think similarly to the group. Um, and another important thing is achievement. And this ties into achievement in a second language, where I believe that comes from multiple factors. Um, One important factor I believe makes or breaks second language learning is consistency. It's the same kind of logic if you're going to go to the gym. If you aren't consistent and don't practice, then you see no muscle growth. And the same for language, you see no language growth, right? Um, for the second language, failing to practice speaking, writing, or just reading on a consistent basis will lead to little to no learning and leave you feeling kind of disappointed and frustrated at the whole experience. Another important factor is to actively seek help, right? If you're struggling. Um, I'm lucky because I have my mom to ask for help. I always ask her how to say something in Korean from time to time when I can't think of a good translation. So it's going to be kind of awkward at first, um, especially like getting that kind of resource. But getting that verbal confirmation and reassurance on how to do something is a really good step on learning a second language. So teachers in a second language, right? I think that teachers can play an important role in learning a second language, specifically teachers who teach a second language. They're at the forefront of that learning experience, right? These teachers will guide students and introduce them to language and diction they've never heard or seen before, or if they've had seen it before, probably super unfamiliar with it, in an informative manner, right? Students who pay attention to the material in that kind of class, as well as having that engaging and helpful teacher, can really help ease the transition from monolingual speaking to bilingual speaking or trilingual speaking or however many languages, right? Um, so on and so forth. Teachers who primarily teach other subjects, they can kind of play a role, albeit not as significant. It's really kind of up to the students to help make connections between the subject material and other classes, other than that second language class, to the second language, right? Otherwise, they don't have much of an impact on learning a new language.